Galilee, Cana of Galilee, in the matrimony, Virgin we have found you, with divinity, our Lord we have found you.
The narrative of the wedding at Cana in Galilee is among many biblical narratives which have left many scholars with many questions. In the Gospel of John, Jesus did only 7 signs. Turning water into wine is the first sign that Jesus did according to the Gospel of John in chapter 2, verses 1 to 11. The Gospel of John is the fourth of the 4 canonical Gospels. It contains a highly schematic account of the ministry of Jesus, with only 7 signs, culminating in the raising of Lazarus, foreshadowing the resurrection of Jesus, and 7 I am discourses concerned with issues of the church, synagogue debate at the time of composition, culminating in Thomas' proclamation of the risen Jesus as my Lord and my God. The background of the text. First, when we look to the narrative order in the Gospel of John, we see this story is, at least in part, about Jesus and his relationship with his disciples. Immediately preceding this passage, Jesus has been gathering and calling them to discipleship. He promises them that they will see some amazing signs. These amazing signs, according to the prologue in John, flow from Jesus, who is full of grace and truth. Now, notice how the story of the wedding in Cana ends in verse 11. Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. The literal translation is actually that the disciples believed into Jesus because of what he was doing. This wording regarding believing into Jesus is used throughout John's Gospel. This miracle may have been more for the disciples than anyone else is underscored by the fact that it is only seen by a few and understood by even less. You've got to wonder, did the bridegroom look confused when the steward sang his wine's praises, or lost in the revelry of his wedding party? Did the word comment simply pass to the wayside? It could be that a need was met before it was even felt. After looking at the textual background of the Gospel of John, let us now turn to some key words. The key theological words we have in this text are sign, hour, wedding, purification, wine, good wine, glory, believed. Let us now discuss on some of them. Sign. The final verse tells us the miracle at Cana is the first of Jesus' signs. It revealed his glory. Therefore, his disciples believed in him. By referring to Jesus' miracles as signs, John's Gospel shifts attention away from the miracle itself towards the greater eschatological reality to which it points. Hour. The word hour, Greek ora, sometimes refers simply and literally to a short period of chronological time, a 60-minute period during the day. However, most often and most importantly, Jesus' hour denotes more broadly and metaphorically to the climatic event of Jesus' death and resurrection, which John's Gospel more so refers to as his glorification. Wedding. Christian marriage is a covenant relationship. The wedding ceremony itself, nonetheless, is a picture of the blood covenant between God and humans. Authorship. Like the three other Gospels, it is anonymous, although it identifies an unnamed disciple whom Jesus loved as the source of its traditions. It most likely arose within a Johannine community, and as it is closely related in style and content to the three Johannine epistles, most scholars treat the four books, along with the book of Revelation, as a single corpus of Johannine literature. As I noted earlier, there are 7 signs in the book of John. Nonetheless, this presentation focuses only on the first sign, the wedding at Cana. The structure of John chapter 2, verses 1 to 11, is typical of a miracle story. The setting is established in verses 1 to 2. The characters are shown in the text in John chapter 2, verses 1 to 11. We see most of them coming frequently. Jesus, head waiter, servers, the mother of Jesus, disciples, the bridegroom, presumably the bride. John chapter 2 verse 1 reads, "On the third day there was a marriage at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there." No name of Mary is mentioned here. We find the complication in verses 3 to 5. When the wine was gone, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." The resolution. This is the solution to the complication, which is found in verses 6 to 8. It reads, "Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." After this stage, what follows is the response. Then the response to that miracle is recorded in John chapter 2 verses 9 to 11. "And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, 'Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now.'" What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. The exposition, geography, time, and space. The exact location of Cana in Galilee has been subject to discussion among different scholars. Modern scholars, for instance, hold that since the Gospel of John was addressed to Jewish Christians of the time, it is unlikely that the evangelist would mention a place that never existed. Nevertheless, some argue that Cana is a very common name, with no known text offering any clue as to which of the dozen towns going by the name would be the correct one, and caused the common choice of Kafr Cana near Nazareth, probably just a pious guess. The main possibilities for the town from the Gospel of John are Kafr Cana in Galilee, locally identified at least since the 8th century with the biblical location. Kirbet Cana, also found in Galilee. And the third one is Cana, southern Lebanon, in an area that was part of the so-called historical Galilee. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia of 1914, a tradition dating back to the 8th century identifies Cana in the modern Arab town of Cana in Galilee, about 7 kilometers northeast of Nazareth in today's Israel. Successively, the ruined village of Kelbet, Cana, about 6 miles further north, is another option presented as certain, whose name, Cana, is also etymologically closer to Cana than Cana. Nevertheless, some Lebanese Christians, especially the Lebanese Melkites, Greek Catholics, reinforced by their church, accept as true the southern Lebanese village of Cana to have been the actual location of this event. All in all, the unanswered question remains, where is the exact geographical location of the place called Cana? My presentation, however, does not aim at verifying with exactitude where the place is. No, the aim is simply to deliberate upon the geography of the place, and in the end, to understand the Bible better, to look at the text with faith. Geographical location and the environment of Galilee. What is closer to the truth is that Cana is not in Judea, it is in Galilee. It was in Gentile territory, for instance, that Jesus made his adult home and performed his first miracle in the Gospel of John. From the very beginning, therefore, Jesus is portrayed as a transnational figure in the Gospel. His life and work go beyond the boundaries of race and nation. The production of grapes, both for eating and for squeezing into juice, was a very important part of the agriculture of the ancient Mediterranean world. Vineyards, fresh grapes, raisins, and wine are frequently mentioned in both the Old and New Testaments. The subject of wine in the New Testament raises several questions about the use of wine then and the use of wine today. The list of questions often includes the following. When the New Testament mentions wine, was it always alcoholic as in modern times? How would the alcoholic content in ancient fermented wine compare with that of various wines today? Situation analysis. Some theologians have argued that the wine was non-alcoholic. However, there is no textual basis whatsoever for this claim. Moreover, fundamentalists contend that surely Jesus would not help others get drunk. Therefore, to justify their conscience, they further say the wine was non-alcoholic. Having said this, normally wine drank at that time in Palestine was pure juice that had been fermented. But was the wine alcoholic or non-alcoholic? This is a question of reflection. In Genesis chapter 9 verse 3, God says that He gives everything to us. It is for our enjoyment and our use. Do we blame God when He makes the plans by which people get drugs and do harm to themselves or others at the same time? God made the things in the world for our enjoyment. Proper use is encouraged, but not abuse or misuse. Consequently, we have only ourselves to blame if we twist what God intended for good and make it evil. In conclusion, the study has brought to the fore lessons which many, if not most, biblical exegetes can emphasize when exposing this text. Ministry should be people-centered and not self-centered. The need for people to be sociable, available, and not to focus on miracles, but to be devoted to the miracle worker himself, Jesus Christ. In other words, the metaphorical lesson is to pay less attention to the wine and instead focus more on the winemaker, Christ. Therefore, what ought to be remarked as the theological themes are Christology, eschatology, Mariology, as well as ecclesiology.
Cana of Galilee, in the matrimony, Virgin we have found you with divinity. Our Lord, we have found you with Our Lady.